Hi guys, welcome back to this week's FRC Legendary Lap Analysis. I realise we've got a bit of a different music at the intro. I thought I'd go for a bit of an American sort of Midwest theme as we're at Road America West this week. A little bit different for you as well. As you can see, we're going to AziDhk and we're going to compare him to Craviator. AziDhk, famed for using the wheel, which is why I wanted to compare him, because we're going to go this view and we're going to go on the in-car view as well, because it is so different, and I thought this would be really interesting for you guys. So coming into the second corner, using that first board on the left hand side just before it to brake into second gear, totally off the throttle, no handbrake, nothing like that, back on, nice and smooth. Coming to the right hand side of the track, clipping over this curb, so actually you can use it to almost propel yourself onto the inside of this one, where you can clip the inside of the curb that pulls you round, and then again a little bit of grass, no handbrake, remember that, on the right hand side. Right, this one, super difficult, later apex than you think, although you need to turn in early, so it's really difficult to get the balance on that corner without running wide on the exit. Flick over to the right hand side of the track, brake before the uphill bridge, clip the curb, so again you hook your front left tyre on the inside of the curb there, run out wide, short shift into third gear, little bit of a lift, back on the power, use all the runway and a little bit more on the outside. It's absolutely fine to take a little bit of grass. And we come to the penultimate corner, braking on the Chevrolet board on the right hand side again, trying to get your car on the inside of that curb, run it a little bit out wide, rev out second gear, use the off throttle to change into third gear. Now this is all about coasting that double apex, keeping it tight, having a 3 or 4 stabs of the throttle. It's not actually slower to do that on Forza 7 at least, and across the line we go. Let's have another look at that in-carb, and what I want you to focus on is how smooth the steering is. Just imagine yourself driving this now on the controller, and you know, there's just no way that you can be this smooth, which I think is absolutely fantastic. You know, as he's absolutely famed for being the best Forza wheel driver. You know, he got to Le Mans a few years ago just using the wheel, unfortunately couldn't compete on it, which was a real shame. But look how smooth he is going into these corners. He's barely turning the wheel, and I think that's a fault that a lot of wheel drivers have, actually, is they end up turning too much and scrubbing those front tyres. You can kind of get away with it on the controller because you can adjust it so quickly, but look how smooth he is through these sections. Nicely on the power, you know, smooth going into the corner. They're barely turning really, and if he does need to adjust, and it's not a huge oversteer correct when it's sort of back to neutral and then back into the steering rack that we need really. Under the Chevrolet board, as tight as we can on the inside, run it out wide, just gently come over to the left hand side of the track into third gear, a little bit of a lift, floor it, and again no massive oversteer correction there, just a tiny little sliver of opposite lock, as again we brake just before that Chevy board on the right hand side, taking a really narrow line into that last corner. Actually, that's quite interesting. Usually I quite like to stay a little bit wider, maybe on that cars where you can get a little bit more exit speed, and with this big old muscle car you need to carry that momentum really through that second to last corner to set you up for the long carousel right hander. Really interesting to bear those things in mind when we watch Craviator now. You know, it's going to be a lot more jagged, and that's nothing against Craviator's style, it's just the controller using sim steering. It's just a totally different way of driving this car, and these two are so similarly matched in terms of time. Thought it would be a good comparison. So just think about how smooth Azzy was coming into this. Again, just before the boards on the left hand side, second gear, taking a couple of stabs at the turn in, full power straight away, and again we saw that flicky, sort of edgy movement on the outside of it. Onto the curb on the right hand side, flick it over to the left, then make sure you get your tyre on the inside of that curb, take some grass so you keep left, and on the inside we take a little bit more grass than Azzy did, and we actually go over that tarmac on the left hand side, a little bit of nerves kicking in, turning in earlier than Azzy did, but because we're on the controller, we're able to just flick the back end of the car round and it just sticks using that sim steering. Braking a little bit earlier than Azzy, taking that tight line again, but it's a little, you know, slightly wider. We use more of the curb on the outside, forces us to go over to the left hand side of the track quicker. Again, a bigger lift because we were out of position going into that right hander. Again, flooring it, keeping it in third gear, braking just after the 3 board, just before the Chevy board, and taking that tighter line again, although not anywhere near as on the curb on the inside as what Azzy was, which is interesting. There's definitely some time left for Craviator. Taking a much tighter line and using an absolute armful of handbrake around this last corner to try and keep that as tight as possible, which I think is A really interesting approach, and we're going to watch more of that on the in-car view, but totally different approach from what Azzy. Let's watch the in-car. We haven't really talked about this first corner, but you need to take a lot of curve on the entry, both before the corner and on the inside and the exit, as you see there, and it's fine if you run over a little bit of grass. A lot of weight, this car carries a lot of momentum, so bear in mind, and we're going to watch it side by side in a second, how smooth Azzy was. Even under braking here for Crav, you can see the wheel working a lot, and on a lot of games that would slow us down, but on Forza it doesn't actually. As we know, the controller's quicker than the wheel. 99% sure of that by now after the game's been out for sort of 3 years. But we take a lot of grass on the inside here. Again, you can see those big oversteer correctments there. Braking early, turning in early, and then I'm pretty sure we're going to see a little bit of adjustment there, but not as much as I was expecting really. Now remember, we missed the apex slightly on this left-hander, which sets us. We didn't really miss the apex, we just run a little bit wide, which means we can't get over to the left-hand side of the track quick enough. We have to take a big old lift to get the nose in, so the nose dips, bites, and then turns into that right-hander. We lost a fair bit of time there compared with Azzy. Brake just before the Chevy board, taking that tighter line there, but we don't get our inside left front wheel hooked on the curve there, which means we have to take a tighter line into this last corner, and I think that forces Crav into using the handbrake a little bit more than maybe he thought he would here. Obviously he was planning to do it anyway. It's just it's a skill, it's something you have to practice in each and every car because it's different, but really interesting how those two differ, and again a little bit of a flick as we go over the line. So let's compare them side by side. Really interesting to see how smooth, just on that first corner alone, we've got Craviator on the left there and Azzy on the right. Just how much lock Crav was having to put on to get the car to do the same thing, which is kind of what I was getting at with maybe overlocking, and you can get away with that on the controller but not on the wheel really. Similar lock just on this, but you can see Azzy's much smoother on the exit, and Crav tap steering a little bit, and it looks ridiculous on the in-car view really. Bit of a tighter line from Crav, and we flicked right a little bit before Azzy, as we're slightly ahead of him. Big kick of oversteer for Crav though. See, Azzy's really smooth on the exit of that, and actually we end up going over this curb. Azzy's now ahead of Crav, much more apex speed on that right-hander. Braking just before the Corvette bridge, of course. Tighter line from Azzy here, which, as I said, enables him to go across to the left-hand side of the track before Crav does. Big lift from Crav, and Azzy, this is going to be gaining time all the way down this hill. It's a shame we can't get the speedo up for you, but all the way down the hill, and actually ends up braking pretty much dead even into this final corner. Azzy takes a better line through the left-hander, but remember, Azzy's not going to be using the handbrake. This is all about Crav's handbrake, and look at him soaring away at the hand. You can feel the nose of the car dipping and the engine noise changing constantly. Less smooth, it's so choppy compared with Azzy's wheel driving. So really interesting comparison between these guys, and across the line in virtually the same time, as you can see, with 1:32.0 for Crav and a 32.1, less than half a tenth in it for AziDhk. Hope you enjoyed this week's FRC Legendary Lap Analysis, guys. Do sub to the channel if you want to support me. Any support is appreciated. It really does, keep the motivations high to keep doing this, and obviously comment below anything that you'd like me to focus on. Till next time, guys. See you later.